Welcome back to Yang Daily. I'll be your host, Alex Cheney, bringing you all the Yang news you need to live your life right. Apologies for the late release. Hopefully, most of you saw my tweet that it would be delayed. It was my dad's birthday today, so we spent the day with him. 81 years. I feel like I'm getting there fast these days. But enough chit chat. Remember that you're on your own for Saturday news, and let's get to Friday already. First off, many thanks to our new patrons, Zin and especially Shia. Shoot me an email or message to correct me if I'm pronouncing that wrong, because I'm going to be pronouncing it a lot, since Shia is our first Tier 3 patron. That's right, she's an enabler. Among other things, that means a shout out every episode for outstanding support to the Yang Daily community. I'm sure all our listeners appreciate it almost as much as I do. Another Tier 3 perk is getting to ask me anything once a month, so feel free to shoot me an email or message to get any question you want answered, Shia, and whether or not you want the question and answer to be private or featured on the podcast. Also, make sure to cast your vote on what other perks you'd value, and I'll get to work on those shortly for you and all our other patrons. We're starting to make real progress on our fundraising goal. Let's hope more of our listeners continue to step up and support the community as you have. You all rock. And don't forget to visit patreon.com/YangDaily if you are not a patron and participate in the poll to let me know what's holding you back from joining. Now on to the news. Humanity Forward has endorsed two new candidates, John Hickenlooper for Senator of Colorado and Paula Jean for Senator of West Virginia. John seems a pretty moderate guy. Among other things, he's for a healthcare public option, raising minimum wage, tuition-free community college, expanding internet access, legalizing weed, and helping workers transition to clean energy jobs. From HumanityFirst's endorsement, it sounds like he supports emergency UBI, which would be reason enough to vote for him alone if true. Paula Jean is a progressive who was on the documentary Knock Down the House. As Humanist points out, she was driving around town in it pointing out the houses where people had cancer, which shows her connection to the community. Also, someone in the comments of the endorsement thread challenged her to earn their vote and asked her what she stands for, and she responded, quote, "It makes me happy to see people out there ready to hold representatives to account. Thank you for asking. I'd be happy to chat with you sometime about our platform and vision for the future. Send me a direct message." End quote. So that's a good sign. She also has an excellent website with a staffer available for live chat. John also has a chat, but it does require a Facebook account. Jean's requires nothing. Unfortunately, she has a federal jobs guarantee in her policy and not UBI, but she does support emergency UBI, and her chat staffer said she's interested in piloting a permanent UBI, so that's a good start. I would not want a jobs guarantee without UBI, though. That is simply workfare, a doubling down on wage slavery, and definite regression. Hopefully, we can help her grow on that issue. Bear in mind that we desperately need to flip the Senate so that McConnell no longer has the power to block all progress by preventing bills from being voted on. Even if you identify more with the Republican Party on most points, we have to have a functioning legislature, and Mitch has made it all too clear we will not get that with the current Republican Senate. As patriots, we must be loyal to democracy over party. In some brighter news, the Mets and Marlins were scheduled to play a game, but instead they took the field, held a moment of silence for 42 seconds, and then left the stadium, leaving behind only a Black Lives Matter shirt on home plate. I'm not a sports guy, but I found this pretty moving. Not a good time to be a sports fan, that's for sure. First COVID and now strikes. It's a good thing, though. Our country has been skirting the issues of racism, just as we've skirted the issues of fascist policing, poverty, kleptocracy, democratic corruption, and so much more. If we're being honest with ourselves, we care more about sports as a nation than we do about values. Maybe when the players care more about values than sports, the rest will have to as well. The NBA just announced that all basketball arenas will be turned into 2020 voting locations to give ample space for large amounts of people to vote safely. This is extra good news since stadiums are almost always placed in poor parts of town, since the land is cheap and it doesn't disturb the wealthy folk with noise and traffic. Thus, it will be very convenient for the working class, which might be the first time in history that's ever been said in regards to voting. Hurricane Laura tore through a region that is home to dozens of major oil refineries, petrochemical plants, and plastics facilities. Now, residents could be breathing dangerously polluted air from those sites. The pollution began before the storm even made landfall because, in the 2 days before the storm arrived, facilities in Texas released more than 4 million pounds of extra air pollution. Every time there's a major storm, the refineries go into shutdown mode. When petrochemical plants shut down, they often burn excess fuel and chemicals that cannot safely linger in pipes in a process called flaring, which releases extra pollution into the air. Many air monitors that usually track such pollution also shut down, meaning it's unknown what or how much is in the air, water, and soil. In Westlake, a chemical plant that produces chlorine for swimming pools caught fire during the storm, prompting a shelter-in-place order Thursday. Moreover, decades of racist housing, zoning, and environmental policies have concentrated industrial facilities and their pollution next to homes, schools, and parks that mostly serve the poor and minorities. Sure could have used Yang's climate change relocation assistance policy right about now, as well as UBI, of course. Also, an EPA that isn't under attack by the executive branch. See the link below for a thread detailing some of the damage from the hurricane. Speaking of disasters, Trump held his portion of the RNC rally on the White House lawn, complete with a stage and fireworks and a wall of flags greater than the length that he's added to the border wall so far, in direct violation of the Hatch Act, which bars partisan events from taking place at the White House, as it is public property belonging to all Americans, not to any one party or even the current presidential occupant, and not to be used for divisive promotion. As usual, Trump cares nothing for sacred American principles and institutions, nor for the law. And every time he gets away with these violations, it weakens the validity of those laws and of our democracy, which rests upon those laws. Attendees were also noticeably devoid of masks or social distancing, which significantly undermined his talk of following scientific guidelines around the virus, though for the most part he and other RNC officials have chosen to pretend the pandemic is over and that hundreds of thousands of preventable deaths of American citizens were no big deal. While I mercifully did not have time to watch the RNC, I did catch CNN's Daniel Dale on a 3-minute marathon sprint to correct just some of Trump's dozens of lies uttered during his speech. It was an impressive feat, even somewhat humorous, if reciting a litany of lies being delivered to the public by our own president could ever be regarded as such. Either way, I highly recommend viewing it at the link below. It's the best show to come out of the RNC. Trump's stain on our national monument was also accompanied by protests just outside the property, which can be heard at points during his speech. Next up, shout out to Cori Bush for getting it. She tweeted, quote, "I believe in voting, and in St. Louis and across Missouri, I'll be doing everything I can to register as many people to vote as possible. I'm not going to do that by shaming non-voters. I'm going to do it by inspiring people with what we can achieve when we do vote." End quote. Telling someone to vote is not effective, even if it's for their own good. People who feel disenfranchised must be inspired, as Yang did for me and so many of us. I was still voting, but I had lost hope. People need a bold vision to follow and one that can unite the disparate elements of America. I hope that Biden takes this lesson. Yang stopped by for a conversation with Whitney Cummings on her podcast. Haven't listened to that one yet, but she says that he makes sense of everything and is a voice of reason in insane times. She's quite a character. I'll definitely be checking it out. Income Movement has started a thread for people to post the most pivotal influencers that have shaped our advocacy for UBI, so as to spread awareness of great resources. I added Alex Howlett, as I rarely hear anyone talk about him, yet he has an entire seminar series teaching about UBI and how it can be funded by sovereign money. I highly suggest checking him out on YouTube or reading his articles if you haven't already. Granted, I have already espoused a lot of his views on the podcast, as well as most of the names I saw in the thread. Still, there were a few I hadn't heard of, though. Karen was even kind enough to include me in the list. Visit the link below and share UBI advocates that you'd like to promote. Shout out to Kian, who posted that she is picking up trash in her neighborhood. As Yang replied, "Every day is Humanity First Day." Volunteering is not only the right thing to do, it encourages others to do more as well. The Twitter thread is full of other YangGang who have been doing likewise in other areas. You all are rocking Humanity First, and I love it. I think we need our outreach in the next campaign to run more along these lines, doing big community outreach programs in the name of Humanity First. Forget the advertising, show people we are living our values. Show them Yang's community is already doing good even before getting into office. That seems like the way to win votes to me. Finally, YangGang Fitness is launching a new outreach program, YangGang Fitness Cares, which will host events to fundraise and volunteer for Humanity First congressional candidates while keeping things fit and fun. And their first event is Cartwheels to Congress. Get your best cartwheel on video and tag it with hashtag Cartwheels to Congress. That's the number 2, in a promotional fundraising effort for Erica Rhodes. Fitness Laddie has promised to donate $2 for every person who posts video of themselves attempting, not completing mind you, a cartwheel to his Twitter thread below. I did my part, even threw in a bonus handstand for double dollars, which he generously obliged. You're up next. And that'll do it for today's Yang Daily. Consider supporting Hickenlooper and Paula. Give some respect to the Mets, Marlins, and NBA. Bookmark and share Dale's incredible fact-checking marathon. Add your most influential UBI advocate to the thread. Donate your best or worst cartwheel attempt. Help recruit other organizations to the cause and get everyone to sign the UBI petition. Flood Congress and Trump with calls, tweets, and letters using the Resist Bot or Income Movement easy contacts below. If you need help, consult Humanity Forward, the Income Movement Aid Database, the Mission Asset Fund, United Way, or the H3 podcast thread. And don't forget to Yang Daily.